Listen, they're trying to hack into the mainframe and kidnap my Bored Ape. You heard me. I'm not kidding. Look, I'm about to do this podcast, okay? But track down their IP address, and I'll transfer the funds to your digital wallet. You got that? Okay, great.
Hey, what's going on, Ray?
Hey, fellas. How's it going? Yeah. You're here a little earlier than I thought. I'm just, my usual stuff, just getting everything kind of together here.
Yeah, is this your mini iPad? No, probably not. We'll get that out of the way.
Yeah,
someone else must have left this stuff.
Yeah, that someone who was here before put all this stuff. And why don't you take that?
Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Hey, Ray, welcome to the show.
Ray, welcome to City Pigeons Podcast, man. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, can we get a look? Can we clap it up for Ray, the GOAT of Philly? I thought, we actually talked about our buddy Pat Gallen, who had one of the best intros in City Pigeons history, and I think we just got rid of that very quickly with what you just did there. So thank you so much.
Absolutely,
yeah. Yeah, I think it was pretty good. I mean, I haven't, I haven't done any serious acting since high school production of Bye Bye Birdie, and that was 1964. So a little rusty, but
now you just write the plays.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Although you did say that you are the backup character, a la Gardner Minshew, in the event someone gets hurt that's in the actual Tommy Me play, right?
The understudy,
I am
called.
Understudy.
I am the acting understudy for Tommy and Me. Anytime we do a performance, if any of the performers show up and they can't go on stage, I'm
unbelievable.
Thank goodness it hasn't happened yet, but who knows?
I got to say, that was unbelievable. You are a true pro because he walks in the door, we spring this idea on him, and next thing you know, he nails it, absolutely nailed it. So thank you so much.
Perfect.
Well, I only had one take, so
you only had one take.
I had to get it right.
That's the beauty of doing this thing live.
One take Ray.
Now, when you walked in, I said, it's not so different than, your Comcast Sportsnet days. You're familiar with the one take thing, you know what I mean? Like you can't mess up. You just got to let it rip.
Actually, I think going live is much better than being on tape. Because if you tape things, you always have in the back of your mind, well, we can do this over again if it's not right. And you wind up doing things over again that you shouldn't have to do them over again. You do them 2 or 3 times, and they're no better than they were the first time. So I've always felt most people would prefer to have the backstop of doing things on tape, but I would much prefer to do them live. They just feel better that way. They certainly feel more real.
I do have to say, as somebody who's been doing this sort of thing for about 6 or 7 months, I didn't mind the backdrop of being able to, fix something if you screwed it up. So going live, it's not as easy for people like me. A pro like you was at it how many years, Ray? 50. I don't want to get this wrong.
In the business?
Yeah.
Well, if you count writing in addition to radio and TV, probably 53 years.
Unbelievable.
Been a long time.
Well, we are. Needless to say, we are honored that you have agreed to join us for the program tonight. And, I'm using this as a moment to try to really take things to the next level for the City Pigeons Podcast. Because while we are certainly a professional outfit, I think we can learn some things from you. And, I talked to these guys a little bit about stepping up their game and becoming true professionals here in 2023. And you being here is really going to help kick that off. So what I've done...
it looks like a pretty slick operation to me.
It's not so bad, right? It's not so bad. See,
thanks, Ryan.
Ray told us it's slick.
See?
Now, let me back up because we did a quick little intro, but I just want to make sure you know everybody. And this over here, this may just look like a table and a TV, but this is what we call the Fink tank. Okay, this is Eric Fink over here, and that's the Fink tank, which is the clever name that we came up for that. To your right is Mike Meech.
I think before you go on it, his family owns Fink's Hoagies, which is one of the premier hoagie spots.
That's important to note. Ray, have you heard of Fink's Hoagies before?
Not before tonight.
Okay. Northeast Philly's best hoagies. You're going to leave.
Oh.
As a participant on the City Pigeons Podcast, you are leaving with a tray of Fink's Hoagies. What do you think?
That's like a parting gift.
Beautiful.
Like an old game show.
Beautiful. So you got Mike Meech over there. These two guys are from the Northeast. Don't hold that against them. To my left is Roger Rock Matthews. We went to high school together.
Yes, sir.
We used to play basketball and lacrosse, and we were obviously amazing at all those things, and have stayed friends for many, many years. He is a devout Philly fan and guy. He pretends to be a Phillies fan. But
only when they're good.
Yeah, he knows a decent amount about, like Eagles and stuff, and we keep him around because he's good looking, to balance things out.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get down to business. I told these guys it's time to step things up, and we're taking a page straight out of Ray Diddy's book, all right? And you know what we did? We went notepad, okay? We went notepad. Now, I didn't tell you to bring notes, and I assumed you didn't need notes to do a program like this. and that's proven to be the case so far. So here's what we're going to do, Ray. I'm going to go around because I gave these guys basically an assignment, and I said, look, we're going to be professionals. We're going to treat this, like a real thing, and we're going to do this the right way. So we're going to go around and see how everybody has done with their assignments, just to see, what they're capable of. So I want to start. We're going to head over, and we have these multiple cameras, so we can. It's just like the studio, we can shoot right over there. All right, let's head over to the Fink tank. Fink, what did you think was important here to get down on the notepad as we get going here with the show? So just want to make sure we understand.
I just want to apologize. I didn't take you serious, Jesse, for that. So when you were telling us to drew a picture of my cat the whole time.
It's good.
You drew. His name's Joel Catbead.
Joel Catbead. That's a great picture.
Oh, so you drew a picture of Joel Catbead.
Well, when we were doing the FaceTime, you were like, to get serious, take some notes and stuff. I was just...
That wasn't clear enough for you.
I don't think you would have passed any journalism classes. What do you think, Ray?
Joel Catbead.
That's a pretty good picture. I don't know.
Joel Catbead.
Looks like he was sitting there.
Looks
so
like
I
a
just
second grader drew that cat. Man.
All right. Fink.
Now you're just being mean.
Thank you.
I'm
okay,
sorry.
Fink. Let's head over. Let's see what Meech did, because Meech is actually now. Ray, you may have heard this in the past. There was a very successful blog called The Fightins'. It was a Phillies blog right around like the Phillies heyday, like the Utley, Rollins, Howard era. It's a true story, by the way. Won Best of Philly. Mike was the brains behind that. So
I did hear that.
Well done.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So he's actually a wordsmith and somewhat of a journalist himself. So let's see. How did you do, Meech?
I take very copious notes, and mine actually looks pretty good. It's
All right,
very
let's
well
show Ray.
structured.
Ray, that looks pretty good, doesn't it?
I got little notes on Ray, questions I got for Ray,
Nice.
and then in the bottom right-hand corner, I have my FanDuel risk-free single game parlay for tonight, so I can try and
Did
win
those
some
games
money.
already start?
What do you
by
got
the way?
for tonight,
Yeah.
by the way?
It's too late.
The squad's been
Okay.
crushing it.
Let's go over the Rock, okay, and see what he did. He's got a lot of big
I
words on
got 3 pounds striped bass, 4 scallions, thinly
That's your
sliced.
grocery list.
2 tablespoons minced ginger, 1 clove of garlic, 1 pinch of red pepper flakes.
All right, I think we get the.
So this is a recipe for like an Asian striped bass. If anyone wants
That's
to,
what you're cooking
get
up
that.
in your kitchen?
Yeah, that's what
I'm
I'm cooking
impressed.
up,
I'm
man.
impressed.
It's
Not
pretty
the
good.
assignment per se.
Well, you just
but,
said take some notes, so I was,
right on just anything.
I was hungry.
He was
at the
watching
time.
the Food Network when
was
he was
hungry.
taking notes.
So
All
there
right,
you go.
all right.
That's what I got.
So let me just. We're gonna have to segue out of this, Ray, because clearly we've failed in
failed you,
most
Ray.
respects. But I have to show you mine, and this. Get a shot of this. I'll let go. Mine says, "Please tell us there's no reason to panic." Okay, and I think you know where I'm going with that, Ray, because really I wanted to get you on the show because we don't hear from you as much as we used to. We're very excited about you coming back for the playoffs, right, to give us your opinion, but we needed it quicker. So this was my plan, to get you in here to hear what you're thinking. And as you can tell, I'm a little concerned because, if you had told me, by the way,
There's reason for concern.
well, we'd be sitting here talking about a team that's, what's the record right now, 13-3?
13-3.
13-3, that I'd be sitting here worried about a 13-3 team before the season. I bet you would have said, not a chance in hell. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're going to have to rely on you to calm down all the good people that are watching this that might be freaking out a little bit right now because things have been a little bit sketchy of late. We're wondering what you've been thinking watching these games.
Well, there are all different ways you can get to 13-3. You could have started slow and then won 9 in a row, like the 49ers have, and they get to this point, and all of a sudden their record looks great.
Right.
But when you were at one point, 11-0, you're 13-1, now you're 13-3. That's a whole different kind of 13-3. I think we're all feeling it. I would say panic, no. I think your word concern is probably fair. I think there is reason to be concerned. I mean, if Hurts will certainly play this week, but he's not going to be 100%. You won't have Lane Johnson. You'll probably have him for the playoffs, but he won't be 100%. And those are two pretty key individuals. Yeah. So, I think that I'm pretty confident that they're going to win this week because I'm not even sure the Giants are going to come in here with any idea of winning the game. But, if if Dable, their coach, actually plays Saquon Barkley, he should be fired.
Right.
I mean, it's all this nonsense. I mean, they're re-invoking the Tom Coughlin, played it to the hilt in that final game against the Patriots, and that's why they won the Super Bowl, yada, yada. And all the New York press is very in a subliminal kind of way trying to put the pressure on Dable to come out and play this game to win. I think it's just nonsense. I mean, you know, Saquon Barkley's carried the ball 890 times this year. If they actually play him and stress him and play him on Sunday, I think it's coaching malpractice. I mean, they're locked into 6. Right. That's where they're going to be. Can't go up, can't go back. You're in the playoffs. You're not playing for a playoff spot. At this point, the only thing a responsible coach should do is just make sure your team gets to that next game, that playoff game, as healthy as they can be. So, I mean, Dable's talked around it, and he hasn't addressed it yet. But I have a feeling that even though a lot of the people in New York are urging him to play it out, I think he's I'm not saying he's going to not play anybody.
I think I read a report today that in practice, it was mostly the second-team guys.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that makes perfect sense.
So the line would tell – I mean, I don't know if you're a man at the table, right? I doubt it, but the line would tell you that they're not going to play any of the players, right? So
yeah, well, I saw it. I haven't seen it since this morning, but this morning it was 14 points.
Right. There you go. So it's a little bit of window dressing.
So that sort of tells you that they're not expecting him to sit the guys. But regardless, I think I'm pretty confident the Eagles will win, get the number 1 seed. They'll get the week off. But – you know, beyond that, the way it looks to me, it looks like they're probably going to have to play Dallas and San Francisco. That's the road to the Super Bowl. And
those are probably
it's going to be tough.
Tests, yeah.
It's going to be really tough, especially San Francisco. They are playing really well.
So much to unpack there. You know, I think I was hoping, the fan in me was hoping you're going to be like, it's going to be fine. Jalen Hurts is coming back. Can't base anything off the last couple weeks. So when you hit me with concern, I'm a little bit, you know, that frightened me a little. It's interesting. I think back to, just like you referenced Tom Coughlin and the Giants, you know, their run and what he did, we can only look back at 2017, 2018, right? Because that's the only example we have of a scenario where it worked out. And it turns out that was just the most, you know, anomalous scenario there could be, but it's very similar, right? You have a team that's steamrolling. You got a quarterback who's playing at MVP level, gets hurt. Now, it's different because Hurts is going to come back, but you have the backup coming in, if you recall, and I'm quite sure you do. Foles had come in, and that didn't look great, like going into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden you catch fire. There's almost no explanation for what happened there, right, other than just like everything clicked. By the way, that year, tons of injuries, right? 7 or 8 guys are injured.
Yep.
So when I look at, you know, Lane and a couple other guys, I'm thinking, well, that year, it's almost like you can't base anything off that year because that year was so crazy, but it is kind of lining up to be quite similar to that. And I'm just wondering, can you go in kind of cold with an injured, you know, quarterback and then still catch fire? And that year seemed to prove it, but I don't know what to think, you know?
Yeah, well, everything you said is true. And I was thinking about that just this week because I even go back the year that went to the Super Bowl under Andy, the Super Bowl in Jacksonville. There's always that December moment. Like that year, it was Terrell Owens,
right?
You know, I mean, that team was 13-1, and to me, we're the best team in the NFL at that time. And then right at the point where, let's get to the playoffs. We're the best team. Let's go.
Yeah.
T.O. goes down against the Cowboys, and then there's no assurance he's going to play at all the rest of the year. In fact,
still don't know how he came back and made it for that Super Bowl. That was a medical marvel.
Can I tell you an anecdote?
Hyperbaric chambers.
And
I'm going to tell you an anecdote about that time period because I remember I was working out at the gym. It was right after he got hurt, and they were talking about him coming back, and I was on the elliptical, and I was like, if T.O. is in the hyperbaric chamber right now, he's doing everything he can to get back, and I shot my heart rate up an extra 5 to 10, you know, just because I knew if T.O. was working that hard, I had to work that hard to try to lose some weight. So that's my anecdote there. But anyway.
Well, that's a very good example of it. I mean, when Owens went down, the feeling was, and every doctor that I talked to said, there's no way he's going to be able to play.
He had a pin,
there's no way he's going to be able to play.
A screw in his foot, right?
Yeah, and I mean, he can work at it. The doctors and trainers can do everything that they're going to try to do with him, but there's no way he can play. I mean, maybe they could get him out on the field and use him as a decoy, but the fact that he could actually come in there and play like T.O.
He had
plays.
the most yardage in
ain't
the
happening.
Super Bowl.
And he comes in, he has 9 catches, 122 yards, was the best player on the field. It was just
And was
I mean, he
cutting
should,
like his foot was fine.
yeah, I mean,
it was
he should have put him in the Hall of Fame
Yeah.
for that game alone.
I would have given my life for that man after that game, and to think he would be in a Cowboys uniform just a few years later. I mean, unbelievable the way that panned out. But how do you think if we look at like 2017 and how that went? Can we take anything from that? Should that encourage us? Because to your point, you always have that team like San Francisco that catches fire and is just looking scary. In 2017, we became the underdogs, going into the playoffs, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I would think we'd still be, favored on the heels of what we've done and the fact that Jalen Hurts is there. We'll see. But can we take anything from that year in terms of like, how we should approach this mentally? Like we should be okay or no?
I think every year is different, Jess. I think every year is different. I think every situation is different. I mean, the T.O. year had its own sort of ups and downs. 2017. I mean, you said it, and it's true. I think people forget. Everybody just sort of focuses on the Wentz injury. But there were so many other injuries, so many other players. I mean, they didn't have Jason Peters in the Super Bowl. I mean, they went into the Super Bowl without a Pulley fight tie at left tackle.
Sproles, what's the linebacker who's now
Kendricks.
No, not Kendricks. Shoot, I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, move on. I can't remember his name. No, Jordan Hicks.
Jordan
right?
Hicks, right.
And there was a bunch of people out. I just remember because they were all sitting there, and Carson Wentz was there as well, and we now know that he, was feeling a little bit salty about that. But anyway,
they had a lot of people out, and that's what contributed to the idea that they were the underdogs, and that whole underdog thing was very real with that team. I mean, Lane Johnson and Chris Long got the masks, and everybody started wearing them, and they really. That became a very strong, unifying, motivating force for that team. Was that nobody thinks we can win? Everybody's counting us out.
Not only were they underdogs, they were home underdogs, which is disrespectful to an NFL player.
That never happened before.
Yeah.
That a team was the number 1 seed and was an underdog in their first game at home to a wild card team. But that was, that was the common feeling was that. Well, yeah, I mean, they were the best team, and they did get the number 1 seed, but that team is not this team. So that's kind of where it went. And I thought that Doug Peterson played it beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean, he let that be the theme. He let everybody talk about how they don't have a chance. On the TVs and the TV monitors in the locker room, they played on a loop like all of the ESPNs and the NFL talking heads with everybody saying, "Oh no, it's Philadelphia. They got no chance. They're going to lose. They're going to lose first game. They're going to lose to Atlanta because Atlanta's going to do this and they're going to do that, and they don't have Peters and they don't have this and they don't have that." And that stuff was playing in the locker room all week long. And a lot of guys were saying, "Oh, that's juvenile. That's kid stuff. These guys are pros. They don't care about this." Oh, they don't care about this? Really? No, I mean, it meant a lot. And that was one of the reasons why when it got to the championship game. When they got to the championship game and they're going to play Minnesota, the game that was going on before that, the AFC championship game, is New England-Jacksonville.
Right.
Remember that? And Jacksonville is winning that game going into the fourth quarter. And all the guys in the studio, and your dad may have even been one of them, were all saying, "Oh, this is great. Jacksonville's going to knock off the Patriots. We're going to be playing Jacksonville in the Super Bowl." And I said, that is the last thing I want, okay? Because this team has been riding this underdog thing all through the playoffs. And if they get Jacksonville in the Super Bowl, all of a sudden that's going to flip.
Right.
And they're going to be the favorites. You don't want to mess with what's rolling for you right now.
See, I thought
the other part, Jess, here's the other part, was I said, you're an Eagles fan and you've been waiting for the Eagles to win a Super Bowl, right? And everybody in their office, office,
this is where I was at.
There's always the one guy in the office that's a Cowboy fan, right? You got the one guy in the office who's a Cowboy fan. And so you've been waiting all these years for the Eagles to win a Super Bowl, and you can come in on Monday morning and say,
rub it right in his face.
"My team won a Super Bowl," and he'll say, "Yeah, you beat Jacksonville. Big deal." So I said, no, if they're going to win a Super Bowl, let them beat the Patriots, and then it'll be nobody can say anything other than.
But at that time, we would have taken a Super Bowl in any way we could have got.
Not to interrupt you, I had the same kind of thought in 2008 with the Phillies. The AL championship was the Red Sox versus the Devil Rays, or the Rays, and no one thought the Rays were going to beat them. So and I was like, that's cool. I want to beat the Red Sox. But then they ended up, the Rays beat the Red Sox and we beat the Rays, and I didn't give a shit. I thought it was just as good to beat the Rays as it was.
Meech,
I
thought we said you weren't going to curse in front of Ray.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ray.
You know,
That's okay.
Right, you okay with that?
I haven't heard it before.
You all right with that?
And I know exactly what you're saying.
You know what I mean? No.
Keep it professional.
Sometimes I can't help myself.
Now, I will say this, Ray. It is a testament to your character that everyone here tightened up a little bit when they heard you were actually going to come.
A Mr. Rogers cardigan.
That's amazing. Okay, so Ray, we have had some debates over, this is our 30th episode, so that's amazing that you're here for that. We've had a bunch of different debates about the Eagles and how things work, and I want to get your insight on one thing in particular because these guys remember. Do you guys remember when I was a little bit upset this year with the Eagles? Do you guys recall?
Yes, I remember.
I remember. It was
what happened,
on Syria.
You were upset with the coach for getting a little too emotional
Right.
after a close win against the Indianapolis
That's right.
Colts.
Okay.
His
That's right.
behavior after the game you were not happy with.
Right, and see, this would have been an instance where I would have really liked to be able to see you on the post game to hear what you would have said, because it was my opinion that in that game, it turned out he wanted to win the game so bad because of the Frank Reich. He wanted to avenge Frank Reich. There were some decisions in that game that I just couldn't understand. There was a 4th and 10 that we went for, so on and so forth, and it was my hypothesis that his emotions were leading him to do something during the game that he otherwise wouldn't have done, right? And I was like, all right, I don't know about this. This scares me. Now, when I did that, Rock, do you remember what you said when I said, I can't believe they went for 4th and 10? Do you remember what you said about that?
I do not remember, no.
You said he doesn't call the plays.
Oh.
Okay, so that was his defense of the coach, that the coach doesn't call the plays. Now, I immediately came back to him and said, well, you mean to tell me they're not making that decision collectively? And here's where I want your insight, because I'm gathering, or I'm quite sure that you understand this better than we ever could. What's the dynamic when the game is going on between the coach and the offensive coordinator, right? In a situation where the coach doesn't call the plays. Is it as easy to say on that 4th and 10, no, that's the offensive coordinator's fault? Because I'm thinking that the coach is still in the headset. That's the other thing, by the way. I have no idea who's speaking in these headsets. Like, how many people can you hear? If you know anything about that, I'd love to hear about that as well. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, how can you can't say, Sirianni has nothing to do with this because he doesn't call the plays, right?
Right. Well, I don't know how the headset works with the Eagles, but I know that most of the headsets, when I was working at NFL Films, we used to have to deal with that because we were wiring guys. And the headsets, there are buttons on it where he can talk to certain guys. It's not like it's if everybody was talking at the same time, it would be chaos. It would be chaos. So right. He can, and sometimes you'll see the coach reach down and he's pushing a button, and it means he's wanting to talk to this guy over that guy. So right. There's individual conversations. And in the case of this, the way the Eagles are operating now, Sean Steichen he's calling the plays, but he's calling them, and Sirianni's listening to every call. And as the head coach, he obviously has override power. In other words, he could say, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this. For example, the one Super Bowl that everybody still talks about, when Russell Wilson throws the pass down on the goal line.
Right.
When everybody's saying you got to hand it to Marshawn Lynch, but they call it play action pass. He winds up throwing an interception. They lose the game, and people are saying, how could Pete Carroll do that? Well, Pete Carroll didn't do that. Darrell Bevel, who was the offense, Pete is really more of a CEO head coach anyway. He's right. He doesn't really get involved in calling plays. But even if he did, he's a defensive coach. He wouldn't be right. calling offensive plays. So he's the guy, and he fell on the sword after the game. People said, how could you make that call? Well, we just thought it was the right call at the time. It wasn't his call. The offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, called that. So every team operates a little differently. And I've got the feeling, and I don't know for that particular incident, the Indianapolis game, that particular call. There were some calls made in that game that had me sort of scratching my head. I will say that. But that's
what experts say.
I get the feeling that Nick really lets Shane call the game. I get the feeling that they work all week on the game plan. Yeah. and that he really lets the OC.
So he has that level of trust.
But at the same time, that would probably be Nick's call to go for it, but then he relies on Sean's play call, right? Instead of that wouldn't be.
The head coach can do what he wants to do.
Right.
Ultimately, the head coach can do what he wants to do. If the offensive coordinator makes a call that the head coach doesn't like, or makes a decision, says no, we're going to kick here, and the head coach in his gut says no, we're going to go for it, the head coach will make that decision.
Right. But I'm saying it wouldn't be the play caller's decision to go for it. That would be the head coach's decision. Then he would rely on the play caller's play.
Right. See, there's a decision matrix here, and I'm guessing every team has to have like a formula for this, because you can't be handling this in 35 seconds or whatever in ad hoc fashion. There's just no way.
No, you talked about it ahead of time.
Yeah, I assure you, what happened though was Steichen was, we got to 4th and 10. There's no way we're getting this. We got to kick it away. And then next thing you know, Nick chimes in the headset. Nope, we got to avenge Frank Reich. We're going for this, baby. You know what I mean? We can't. That's my buddy Frank. We got to win this game. That's what I'm thinking.
It seemed like he had that. It seemed like he had that in his mind, which obviously came out at the very, very end of the game. But Nick is a very emotional guy. I mean, you see that. I mean, he's a guy that's. That energy and that emotion has been, for the most part, a good thing. I think that's the players certainly respond to him. He's a guy that connects with his players. But I see my issue with him was the Chicago game. I saw in that game some of the hits that Hurts was taking, and I said, they got to back off on this, because they're going to get this guy hurt. I mean, there are just some times that, 17 rushing attempts for a quarterback, you shouldn't do that.
So what about
deep in the season, you shouldn't be doing that. And and now it looks like the easiest second guess in the world that, you got him hurt. As that game was going on, there were 2 hits in that game. One of which, if you remember, he got knocked backwards.
Yeah.
The guy took him and knocked him backwards. And another one he took on the sidelines. After those, I said, this is insane that they're continuing to run this guy on a bitter cold day like this. And then, sure enough, comes the play where he gets driven down on the point of his shoulder. And I think that this injury is actually even worse than they're letting on. I think he's got a shoulder separation.
So I don't want to hear that.
They're calling it a sprain, but I think it's worse than they're saying.
So the Eagles' offense, though, it's highly reliable on the RPO, right? So, yeah, they may call, here's an option, hand it off, do what you think's right. So there's got to be some sort of level of the quarterback making that decision too, as opposed to just the coach or just the offensive coordinator, right? So, yeah, he ran the ball 17 times, but he could have ran the ball 10 times. He could have ran the ball 8 times. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I think that if you look at the pace that he was on, the number of rushing attempts he was going to take this year, it was poaching a red zone. It really was. I mean, I was starting to feel it, and I was really feeling it in that game, that they are really tempting fate here, running this guy as much. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with turning around and handing the ball to Miles Sanders.
Right.
There's really nothing wrong with just turning around and saying,
or
"Here you go, pal."
Or Scott. They
got guys that can do that stuff, and the offensive line at that time, when it was fully healthy, was getting the kind of push that could be very effective. I mean, they did it again as badly as they played Sunday, and as poorly as Minshew played. When they came out at the start of the second half and they came out and they started running the ball, it was 8 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards. I mean, they can do that.
Right.
And they could have done the whole thing, because Hurts is such a dynamic player at that position that whether he runs the ball or not, he's affecting how the defense plays. Even if he's not going to run the ball, they have to think and play as if he's going to run the ball. So he's getting you that advantage whether he's got the ball under his arm or not. And I think that sometimes this year, and ultimately it came down and it really bit him in the butt in Chicago, I just thought that they leaned on him too much.
So, real quick, I'm sorry.
No,
so the game on Sunday, you mentioned the second half they came out running, and you're talking about how there's the dynamic between the coach and the offensive coordinator. The first half Sunday, and Sanders only touched the ball, 2 times? He only had two rushes that first half. At a certain point, right, doesn't the coach have to come over and, if he's a good coach, he has to come over and see, all right, this game is not going well.
Okay, so this is a natural segue. I appreciate it. I don't know if you intended that, but I appreciate it if you did. One of the things that has been concerning me is that the games just went so well for the most part this year, right? Like, things worked. We were able to execute, and obviously we've got a ton of talent. But there have been scenarios, only a few, where they didn't work, and the adjustments, right? The in-game adjustments, right? Like on last weekend, you make the adjustments at halftime. But you know what? The problem is, Ray, and you know this, when you go to make those adjustments and you start doing things better, well, if you still, 1 or 2 turnovers along the way, you can't make it up. You've left yourself too little a period of time.
Right.
And my concern is we've got a guy who is still a young coach, right? He hasn't been through these battles. And when we get into the playoffs, I doubt it's going to be as simple as going out and executing whatever your game plan is and blowing people's doors off. And I just have a little bit of concern about the fact that we just needed to win, 1 game here, and we've struggled to do that. And it doesn't seem like the approach has made a lot of sense. So I'm just a little bit worried, about the adjustments and our ability to, really, if we face that adversity, we're playing a tough team.
Yeah, well, I think that it's really two different discussions for each side of the ball. I don't think there's a matter of adjustments as much on the offensive side. When the offense has bogged down, it's been because they've turned the ball over, which isn't a matter of adjustments. It's just a matter of better execution. Where I think the adjustment issue, and you saw it on Sunday, is on the defensive side. When teams are having success, especially throwing the ball against you, your willingness to adjust your coverage. Because you have in Slay, you have a guy who has throughout his career been a far, far better man press cover guy than a zone player. Now you've asked him to play zone, and he's played zone pretty well, but that's not really his forte. Bradbury is more of a zone player. Slay is more of a press player. And I wondered coming into this season, to me their styles didn't seem, to me at least, compatible initially. Now they've played well together so far this year, but I think sometimes, depending on the opponent and depending on the matchups there, I think sometimes it can pose some problems. And I wondered if, and it's clear that Gannon is a guy that does not like to blitz, and it's hard to criticize him because, they lead the league in sacks, and they've done all that. But I wonder if you're talking about the end game here, if you're talking about the playoffs, you're talking about the teams you're going to play in the playoffs, if you are playing Dallas and San Francisco, you're going to be playing teams that can match up with your front and can match up with your 7. So Gannon is a rush 4, sometimes rush 5 guy. Can you get the same kind of pressure against really elite protecting teams? And if you can't, and you're not getting sufficient pressure on the quarterback, is he then willing to, okay, I'm going to start bringing some pressure, I'm going to start blitzing, if that's not his nature? Because in the playoffs, to win those games in the playoffs, he's going to have to do that because his front 4 isn't going to be, assuming it's going to be those 2 teams, and I think it's going to be those 2 teams, I don't think you're going to be able to get the same kind of pressure out of the 4. I think you're going to have to blitz some, and will Gannon be willing to do that in a high-stakes game?
So interesting that I thought I was so focused on the offensive side of the ball in terms of the willingness to make adjustments there. You took it over to the defensive side. So, maybe an issue there on both sides. But I think this is interesting because when I envisioned you coming on the show, I thought maybe we would goof around or whatever. And what's really broken out here is like an in-depth assessment of the Eagles, and it's really firing me up about the fact that we have the playoffs coming up, and just listening to you break this down is amazing. But I did want to make sure, we have you here. I wanted to hear your perspective a little bit on what it's been like. I know since you retired, obviously you've been showered with so many great, fitting compliments, and there's been such an outpouring of love. I wanted to understand from you what it's been like to do what you've done here in Philadelphia. You are universally loved here.
You're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's amazing. And to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that's pretty cool. Do you ever just say something, I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? I don't think that's your style. That's probably not the case. That's what I would do.
He's a little more humble than that.
No, you'll never hear me. You'll never hear me say that. It's just a great feeling. Every time that I go back to the Hall of Fame, like I did this year, I went back for Dick Vermeil's enshrinement, and I go in and make sure my name is still there. That they
scrub it off.
Yeah, that 1995. That they haven't just. Wait a minute, how did we put him in? Take that down. That it's still there, and it really is a great feeling. And as far as the all the stuff that's been written and said since my retirement, it was really lovely and really gratifying, and far more than I really anticipated. The funny thing was, about a month ago, or maybe a little more, my wife and I were just having dinner, and this is when the Eagles were 11-0 or something, and she said, you know, they're going to be calling you. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you know, WIP and NBC,
City Pigeons.
they're going to be calling you, but they're going to want you to come back now. And I said, oh, no. They've moved on. They've got new shows. They got new guys. They're doing fine. They don't need me. And she said, I don't think so.
Wow.
The very next day, the phone rings. She picks it up and she says, yeah, he's here. And she said, here it is.
She said, show me the money, Jerry.
and it was Michael. It was Michael Barkan calling from NBC saying,
they figured that
hey,
would
listen,
work.
if if the Eagles
they
looks
sent
like
the big guns
they're going to
to
the
go
post. They're going to the postseason.
We need you, Ray.
would you be interested or willing to come back? So, then I sat down with my wife and said, all right, well, the call came just like you said. How do you feel about it? Because I didn't want to wind up with a Tom Brady, Gisele Bundchen situation on my hand. And so she said, listen, I found
a younger jiu-jitsu trainer.
Who knew that this season was going to go the way this season's going? Because at that time they were undefeated and people were talking about them being a perfect team. So I said, okay, I recognize this. They're on a pretty historic arc here, so I agreed to come back, and so I will be coming back.
We're all
for the postseason.
appreciative.
Well,
amazing.
Let's just hope it's a long run.
Well,
let's hope it's not one and done.
And you know what's interesting in Meech? I know you wanted to get into this a little bit. You resonate across the demographics and age ranges. There's people who are in their 20s who missed a lot of the football that we've seen, who revere you, and you've got this like legend. It's really an amazing thing, and I'm so grateful for you coming on the show that we can tap into that a little. It's just amazing. But I know like the landscape has changed. Meech, we were talking a little bit about, I mean, look at us. We're here putting a show out on the internet for whoever is willing to watch it. It's not like
be honest, because you wouldn't offend us in any way, but in general, is there any way for you to respect the new media that it's almost like you graduated from Temple, you had to work your way through the ranks. I'm sure you busted your ass at every turn to stand out from the rest and just to make a name for yourself. And then afterwards, you get you're where you deserve to be, but you really had to work. Now there's people who just like us. We just grab 3 cameras, a couple of buddies, and we set up with a couple microphones, and we basically have the same outreach. It's not fair, really, but can you respect the newer media guys as much as ones who built their career? Because I probably wouldn't if I was in your.
No, it's
besides us.
I mean, everybody would view it differently, I suppose, but. To me, I respect journalism done well,
right?
And
damn it, we're out.
And if podcast, I will say this. One thing I have learned since I've retired, I had no idea how many people had podcasts.
Yeah,
I think
like
everybody in the world has a podcast.
Such a stupid idea.
Which is fine. I think that's fine. If it's done well, if it's done responsibly. If it's just a bunch of guys screaming and hollering and just throwing stuff up against the wall, then okay, then I don't respect that. Right. But guys who are smart and guys that do their homework and guys that pay attention, guys like you, I can respect that. And the fact of the matter is that the audience out there is so different. And they're attuned to getting their information from a million different sources. Right. I mean, I hate to say this. It breaks my heart to say this. But newspapers are gone. Yeah, I mean, that was where I got my start, and that's where I ever wanted to be. I loved newspapers.
Yeah, I saw a guy.
Nobody reads newspapers anymore.
When I was a kid, and we got the Daily News delivered, and that insert every week with all the football picks, the Eagles breakdown, and the articles from you. It was just so great as a young kid.
Why do you think you're hitting all these single game parlays, Meech? It's because you were looking at those inserts. You built that. You know what I mean?
I saw a guy buying the
It
paper the
makes
other day. I
you
was
understand the sport better. But like, there's just so much information out there now. You really have to know how to sift through it and what to brush aside and not pay attention. Like, I think that's one of the biggest strengths in being a consumer of sports or anything nowadays, is knowing what to disregard, and because there's just too much out there. It's like an overload.
Right. Well, there is that. I mean, there is a lot of noise. But if you're a smart fan, if you're an educated sports consumer, which I do think the bulk of the people in Philadelphia are.
Yeah.
I really do
Way
think
more than
I really
most
do
other
I really do think that is not an erroneous perception, is that Philadelphia is a smart fan base. And they should be. I mean, they've, for 50 or 60 years, they've been reading people like Stan Hochman and Phil Jasner,
Right.
and they've been listening to people like Al Meltzer and really good broadcasters that
Like
people
Ray
here-
Diddinger.
People are. I don't know if I put myself in that company,
Absolutely, you're
but
in
I
that
think
company.
that you have a fan base here that has been well educated and been well served and well educated by the people reporting, both on television and in newspapers. So as a result, the people, they know when they go to a game what's good and what's bad, and I always felt that was. People would say to me, well, you grew up in Philly. You grew up as an Eagles fan. And sure, I mean, there wasn't a bigger one than me. Wasn't it hard for you to cross over from being a fan, sitting in the stands, to going in the press box and covering a team? And was it hard for you to then become objective and criticize? And I said, no. I fully understood the difference between being a fan and being a reporter. I knew when I walked in the press box, I wasn't a fan anymore. I had to be a reporter. And in this town, if you aren't honest with the people, then you'll have no credibility.
That goes from journalists to athletes. The most
Yeah,
revered athletes in town are the ones
if
that are
it's-
just
and
upfront
we
with
have
the
another-
fans, because we can see through the bullshit. easily.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And we have another natural segue here, because that instantly made me think of my dad, right? Like, and you guys obviously got along as good as anybody can, and he is one of few politicians who's, for the most part, liked universally. And I think a lot of that was because he just told it like it was.
Right.
And I don't think he had a problem talking about the team, I was thinking about some of the. I actually have some questions for you, Ray. We'll get into this in a minute, but I got to assume one of the highlights of your career had to have been working with my dad for. How long did you guys do the show together? Like 20? I mean, how long did it go on for?
Your dad
By the way,
joined us
oh,
right
look
away.
at this.
Look at this right here. This is, you can kind of see it. Fink, you gotta. There you go. Look
Yep.
at that. Look at Michael Barkan, man. All black with
Serious
the
face.
maroon tie.
Yeah, that was year one. That was the first year when they put the show together.
So I actually asked my dad this question today, because I wanted to ask you, what did you think when they told you the mayor was going to join the show? But in reality, they started the show with you, right? Like, tell me a little bit about that, because that's just amazing to me, like how that happened.
Your dad came on the very first show. The very first show when Comcast Sportsnet signed on, it was mid-season. They signed on in October, so the Eagles season was already underway. And it was an Eagles. I'm not sure who they played, but anyway, they played this game. And the idea was, and nobody knew if the show was going to work. Nobody knew if anybody was going to watch. The studio was still under construction. There were like wires hanging from the ceiling. If people could have really seen what that looked like, it was pretty crude. But it was, the original show was Michael Barkan, me, and Tom Brookshire. That was it was us three, and they said Mayor Rendell. He was then the mayor. Mayor Rendell is going to be joining us, and the idea was that your dad was going to come on, and he was just kind of going to give the station his blessing. He was just going to kind of come on and do a segment and just sort of say, hey, it's great to have Comcast Sportsnet here, and you guys are going to be great, and we wish you all the best, and I'll be watching. That was the original idea, that he was just going to do like a 5-minute spot. Well, he just settled into the chair and he just started talking football, and he never left for 25 years.
Wow.
But here's the thing,
So
Jess. This gets to the kind of the point that you were making. Initially, was there some criticism? Like by City Hall reporters saying, come on, he's the mayor of the city. I mean, doesn't he have more important things to be doing on a Sunday than sitting there talking football?
What's more important to do on a Sunday in Philadelphia?
But the thing was, your dad, people recognized very quickly that he was no amateur and he was no poseur. He was not a politician that was on there trying to score cheap points, but not knowing what he was talking about. He knew what he was talking about. He was a real smart fan, and he had strong opinions, and people started saying, hey, he's pretty good. He fits right in with these guys. And so your dad was, we did the show together for, 22, 23 years, and I drove him home every night.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So many amazing stories. I'm sure you recall, but when I was younger, I used to, I was fortunate enough to go to a lot of the games, and it was like my favorite thing to do. I'd come over after the game, and I would sit in the studio, and I remember I'd never tried to be so quiet in my life because it was incredibly quiet, when you guys were between segments or what have you, and I got to just watch it all go down, and just awesome stuff. I mean, there was times definitely when you hear some of it when people are like, why the hell is a politician on this sports show? And I'm his son, and I'm just like, I think this is cool. He's doing a good job. People like it, I was like, I'm going to all the games. That's pretty sweet. By the way, they had hot dogs.
Totally worked.
The hot dogs in the mayor's box, Ray.
Pretty good?
Yeah. I just had to get in there before all the union guys, because different union guys would come in. I had to get in there before the union guys, but no.
Well, I remember you would text your father all during the show, right. And he would show me, he always sat next to me, and he would show me what you were texting him during the show.
And that's where you got all your insights? I knew it. I knew that was
You're stealing Jesse's ideas all those years.
Well, I remember one of your texts that actually made your father laugh. And he said, I have to show you this one. And he showed it to me, and it was your text, and you said, enough with Kevin Cobb.
Spot on. Was I spot on or what? Hey. If you know it, you know it. What can I say? Okay, so I wanted to do something fun here because, I told my dad that we were lucky enough to have you on the show, and he's like, you got to be kidding me. There's no chance.
Is your dad watching, by the way?
No, I do not think, I don't know, unless my wife, hooked it up for him. Yeah, he doesn't really fully understand how it works, but we'll get him in there. He'll watch the replay on this. Okay, so I want to play a game with you, okay, because I know you guys got to know each other pretty well. So I asked him some questions. All right, and I want to see if you can answer them in the way that you think he would.
Okay.
I think you'll get the gist of this as we go here pretty quick, okay? So here, let me start with the first one, okay? Who was my dad's favorite former Eagle co-host from all the years that you guys did the show? Former Eagle co-host on the show.
I'm going to say Vaughn Hebron.
Your dad got along with them all great, but I would say Vaughn was probably his favorite.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
I think he was going to say that anyway, Meech, but geez. Let the bit breathe.
He loved.
I didn't know the answer. I was just guessing.
No, you're good.
He loved Vaughn's shout-outs.
Okay.
He loved Vaughn's earrings, and he loved his shout-outs.
Okay, and I will say this. There was a lot of good people. Brian Westbrook did a great job, I thought, and my dad said, Brian Westbrook was great too. But Vaughn had a alacrity. Is that the appropriate way to say it? He just had this larger-than-life personality. He was funny. And my dad was interested to know.
From those Super Bowl wins out in Denver.
That's right. How many shout-outs do you remember any of the shout-outs?
I think I remember them all.
Okay. This will be legendary.
I think I remember them all.
Let's list them right now. We'll check with Vaughn on this.
Newtown Athletic Club.
Yeah, that makes sense.
APS Wireless. Stockburger Chevrolet. David Craig Jewelers.
Yes.
And Frank Dorito. Did I get them all? I think I did.
Honestly, that was amazing. Honestly, you couldn't have killed. As I was going through this, I was like, I think Ray's gonna know these. I never could have.
That's a killer memory, right?
You would have known that.
Well, two of the guys actually came on the set with us. We had David Craig Jeweler. David Craig the jeweler was sitting in the audience, and your dad said at the end of the show, "Come on up." So we wound up with David Craig the jeweler on the set at the end of the show.
And the best part,
where he got the earrings from.
And then Frank, that was where he got his earrings. And Frank Dorito came one time too. It was a very spontaneous kind of show. I think that's why people liked it. I mean, we've got the X's and O's stuff, and we talked football for sure, but we had a lot of fun, and I think people liked that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and I'm sure like it's funny because I don't think those guys were paying Comcast Sportsnet. You know what I mean? This was like a independent.
And that became an issue.
Exactly.
Those are
the things that happen behind the scenes.
The sales department was saying, there are people paying for advertising time on our show. These
we
guys
have
are
a
getting
jeweler
it for free.
sponsor, Vaughn. We have a jeweler sponsor. Okay, here's a good one. I think these are going to be too easy, Ray. But you know what the hell? All right. What is the other show he told viewers to watch when the games are really bad, as an alternative to the post-game show?
Some version of Godzilla.
Okay.
Usually Godzilla versus Mothra.
You got it. You got it. Look, that was the follow-up question. If you could get the specific Godzilla versus Mothra, man, you are a legend in every respect. Okay, here we go. Now, this is an important one. So I know you guys, you always watch the game together, right? These guys, they would watch the game. And you didn't used to do pregame a while back, right? It was just postgame.
Yes, and originally it was postgame for a while. Then they brought in pregame.
Right. So the main event was always the food, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there was like a spread the likes of which you've never seen. You can imagine different, former football players, media. And so my dad, I don't know if he wasn't always responsible for curating the food, but I know often he was. And so my question to you is, who was his favorite purveyor to utilize? See, he already knows the answer, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Walter Stabe.
That's right.
City Tavern.
That's right. See, you're an encyclopedia of all types of information.
Now, Walter, for most folks, I think most folks know what City Tavern is or was. It's not open anymore. But it's a colonial sort of restaurant down in Old City, right around 2nd and Walnut. And they did the whole colonial thing. The waitresses and the waiters were all dressed up in colonial garb. And Walter Stabe, who was the chef there, loved your father. And when we were doing the show, he would bring this incredible spread of food to the set. And so it was pretty spectacular. That in fact, people came from all over Comcast Sportsnet. People who weren't even working came in there to eat because it was so great. And your dad was purely for your dad. If your dad wasn't on the show, trust me, Walter Stabe would not have been bringing prime rib to the studio.
We used to go there on Christmas Eve, and it was really funny because I was young, and they do the whole colonial thing, and I just kept thinking like, "Hello, governor," as we walked in. It's really funny. Anyway, those were good times. Those were good times there. Okay, so last one. I think you'll get this too pretty easily. But what did my dad once do during the show open to express his discontent with the futility of the team that year that was noteworthy?
He decided he wanted to put a bag on his head, right? Is that what it was? And it was, but he couldn't get a paper bag. Because the idea is, anybody remembers the bag on the head was always a paper bag. This is
Rodg's move.
It was always a paper bag with eyes cut out of it. But we couldn't just produce that kind of paper bag on a moment's notice. So he got like a supermarket plastic kind of bag and put that on his head.
Looks really weird.
Yeah, he's trying to suffocate himself.
Looks really weird.
It just wasn't quite the same effect, but it was very typical of your father. It was a very spontaneous on the hey, you know what I want? Do we have any bags around here? Any bags around here? And the best somebody could do was like a supermarket plastic bag, and we were all afraid he was going to wind up suffocating.
Did he draw an angry face on it?
No, it looked like
on his face.
What's the movie? It puts the lotion, the Joe Dirt when he has like the pantyhose on it. It was very weird. It looked very weird, and
we don't have that.
I'm sure we don't have that.
Oh man,
I'm sure the people at Comcast Sportsnet were like, "Are you sure?" And it was too late. They were rolling and. You remember that somehow brings to mind the Joe Conklin cameras over here bits he used to do.
Oh yeah,
making fun of him. Now, do you remember? Okay, he wanted me to ask this question, but I was like, I don't think Ray's going to know that. Do you remember he had a favorite song throughout all those years that Conklin did? Do you happen to remember that?
We have a team in last place. This team is a total disgrace.
Unbelievable, which is to the. I got friends in low places or something like that Conklin did. See, I didn't think you remember that, but your memory is extensive. And
maybe your questions were just too easy.
No, I think we wanted to make sure. If I had asked him questions he didn't know the answers to, it would have not been made for, good entertainment, Rock. So, we had to do that.
Listen, I sat next to your dad every Sunday for more than 20 years, so I got to hear the whole repertoire.
Yeah. Well, I know that he greatly appreciated your friendship and the times you guys got to do that, and very surreal experience for me as a fan, seeing that all go down.
Well, listen, do I have time to tell one quick story about your dad?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Ray, we're not going to tell you what to do, bud.
Okay.
You do whatever you want. We'll stay here forever.
This is the other side of sitting next to your dad.
Oh, boy.
And this, I think, will tell people what kind of guy your dad was and what kind of a public servant he was. In year 2, 3, whatever it was, I got a letter from a woman who wrote to me at Comcast, and she said that she was explaining her family situation. Her husband had lost his job. She had lost her job. They were about to lose their house. They were really at wit's end. And she said, we've been trying to get in touch with somebody at the mayor's office that might be able to help us. They're getting ready to turn off our electricity. They're getting ready to turn off our heat. And she said, we've been trying to get through. We can't get through. And she said, you sit next to him every Sunday for 2 hours. Could you give him this letter? Because I don't know if it's going to get to him if I send it to City Hall. But you sit next to him. Could you give him this letter and see if there's anything he could do to help us? It put me in a very funny position because channels exist for a certain reason. I mean, things are supposed to proceed a certain way in city government, but I couldn't very well throw it away. So I brought the letter to the set the next Sunday, and I said, Mayor, I got this letter. Take a look at it. Do what you wish. And he looked at it and he said, okay, I got it. Put it in his pocket. 2 days later, I got a call from that woman and she said, I can't thank you enough. Someone from the mayor's office has already been in touch with me and they're going to take care of the situation. That told me so much about the way your father accepted the responsibility of being a mayor and trying to help people, which was always what he was about. I mean, he was a truly caring politician. And the fact that he did it one other time, like a couple years later, similar kind of thing. Could you give this letter? Yes. I heard right away that somebody from the office contacted them and rectified the problem. So I have a million stories about your dad.
Right.
And most of them are kind of funny Godzilla stories.
Right.
But I think this is the kind of story that also needs to be out there, is how
It's good stuff.
how he stepped up
Yeah,
and
it says a
helped
lot
people
about
that
you
needed
too,
help.
though, right? I mean, like you said, there's the
Oh,
bag.
Ray, he found it.
Oh, okay, great.
Shout out Mark Goodhart.
It's jarring. It's jarring. And we have our own bag head here. Turn towards the camera.
I think there's
Got our
a
own
warning
bag head.
on those plastic bags.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
not
you're not
do
supposed
that.
to do that, but he lived through it somehow.
Anyway, that story that you just told, Ray, that says a lot about you as well. Because like you said, you got this email or a letter at the time. You could have taken that letter and said, what the hell am I going to do with this? Throw it in the trash, whatever. But you said that. I'm sure you probably felt what this woman was going through and said, you know what? I feel the need, the obligation to take this to the mayor. Maybe you can help, A lot of people in your position probably wouldn't have
toss
done
that.
anything with that. You know what I mean? So that says a lot about you as well.
This was amazing. I didn't mean for this to turn into an Ed Rendell episode. However, it is his 77th birthday today.
Happy birthday.
So we are
I
doing
know.
that in honor of him. We had a nice
Happy
celebration
birthday,
earlier.
Gov.
Happy
Gave
birthday,
him a cake. So, really
You
awesome.
got cake?
We had cake. I didn't bring any, but, but really awesome to hear those stories. And, Ray, your perspective on everything is amazing. I do have to do a little bit of business real quick, right? Because we got to keep the lights on here. And I'm going to announce something that's very exciting. And Ray, you might be interested in this too as well. So just give me a sec here. So very excited to announce that we have a new sponsor on the show. And not just any sponsor. It's not like a company that makes water heaters or does plumbing or something.
Nothing wrong with making water heaters.
That's not what I meant, Meech. You get my point. The point is, the new sponsor for the show is the Fans of Philly. And I know a lot of you people.
Yeah.
Clap it up. Clap it up for Fans of Philly.
I am a fan of Philly.
You're a fan of Philly. No, but here's the deal. And it's funny because when we announced it earlier, a lot of the people that I know that follow the show, because you get to see the people that are really following the show, and they immediately were like, hell yeah, that's amazing. And these are the same people that are going on these trips, and it's this awesome network of amazing sports fans that are setting up really cool excursions to lots of different away games. So this is super exciting. They're going to be on board with us at least through the end of the Eagles season, and then once we get to like the draft and the schedule release, we're going to really kick into the next gear. But we know that we've got a couple cool baseball trips already lined up that you want to check out at fansofphilly.com. And then there's also going to be, amazing Philly Eagles road trips that we're going to want to get into. And
I do appreciate how fans of Philly, they bring so many Philly people to events. It's like bringing Philly to another city. So when you go to a bar, it's like hanging out at the same bar you would in your neighborhood, except you've just moved it to another city who isn't ready for you, and you just.
And I Jess gave us some homework. He said, "Take a look at these guys' social medias," and I looked at it and I was like, "Oh man, this is just like I was looking at Chicago, like
they did a lot of video post games too. They're on the field, they're on the fields, they're on the ice, they're on the.
And I think it's only a matter of time before they ask me to go on some of these trips. You know what I mean? I'll definitely be out there going, and
you'll be like the bus. You'll be like the bus
post
mother.
Stuff about it and
So you're saying like fans of Philly, birds of a feather away tailgate scenario?
Yeah, but obviously if they have to choose one person to go, but anyway, we'll get into that later. Super exciting stuff. I think they're going to give us some trips to give away at some point. To people who are watching the show, so that's going to be amazing. Now, we're going to do a couple things with this real quick. First, Ray, we always like to try to weave our partners into the content of the show.
Right.
So what we've done here is we've created a segment. And this is really, you're not going to believe the brain power that went into this. We have created what we call the Fan of the Week with a PHAN. You see where I went there? You get this? Okay. So
it's a crazy corporate tie-in.
Meech, I'm going to let you take over because you're spearheading the Fan of the Week this week and everything.
I nominated this little kid from the Sixers game who was, I guess the Sixers have a new thing in between timeouts and stuff where they have Just Want to Rock by Lil Uzi Vert going off, and this kid really showed off, and he's the and then the guy after him was pretty good as well. But this kid's the star of the show. He's our fans of Philly fan of the week.
Fan of the week. If you know this youngster, get in touch with him and tell him
Not Franklin.
He hasn't won anything per se, but he is the Fan of the Week.
Now, Ray, have you ever heard of Lil Uzi Vert?
No.
He's from Philly.
No Lil Uzi Vert. Now, Ray, but
my
do you know
13-year-old's really into him.
What about Meek Mill? You've picked up on Meek Mill a little bit. You couldn't not,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me.
Ray's probably got dreams and nightmares in the car when he gets back in.
Now that would be something. Okay. So to wrap a bow on the Fans of Philly introduction of them as our sponsor, we love you guys. We appreciate you. We look forward to working with you. Here's what we're going to do, Ray. We do know some of the games that we're going to have next year, right? Because we know the division that we're going to play. I didn't realize, and some of the home and away is already set. And I don't know how that all works, but here's what I know, okay? We know that we are going to play in L.A. against the L.A. Rams.
So it's going to be a home game.
What? Yeah.
So that'll be a home game.
And then we're going to play in Seattle. We're going to play in Kansas City and New England. There may be a couple more, but here's what I want you to answer. Out of those 4 games, if you had to go to one, which one would you go to and why? Or which one would you recommend fans go to? Any way you want to take it. Maybe based on the opponent, the circumstances,
the atmosphere.
Obviously, you're thinking like Kansas City,
the weather.
You might want to go there, get in on some barbecue, and see Patrick Mahomes. That might be number one for me.
That would be number one. Arrowhead Stadium is one of my favorite stadiums in the NFL. It was built the same year as the Vet, but it's aged much better, and they just have a great game day atmosphere at Arrowhead. You mentioned the barbecue and the parking lot.
Yeah.
Some of the best tailgating in the league. Might be the best that I've seen. And it's a fantastic stadium, and you get to see a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes.
Come on. That's the one I'm going to go to. Fans feel like
the one I would also say this. I have not been to the new stadium in Los Angeles. I have not been there yet. But my son, who is an NFL Films cameraman, has been there several times, including for the Super Bowl last year, and said that it is spectacular.
I don't want to go there, Ray. It's like it's like Westworld. I don't want to go there. I want to go to the real place. I want to go to Kansas City. I want to get barbecue sauce on my face.
Now, what if it's like?
We'll go to Seattle. Go to the fish market. They got a nice little crowd over there.
If it's late December and you got to go out to Kansas City, it could be a little bit of a difference than going out to L.A. It could be -2 out in Kansas City in late December.
These are the decisions that the patrons of Fans of Philly are going to have to make when they decide which one of these trips that they're going to sign up for. So
my choice would be Arrowhead. because that's always been one of my favorite places, one of my favorite stops.
Yeah. On this note, Raj and I went to the Eagles-Rams game at the Coliseum where Wentz got hurt.
Oh, okay.
Which was an epic game, but the stadium obviously is a little bit old, but it was still cool. I'd rather go to like an old historic spot than
that stadium.
SoFi Stadium.
Terrible.
I also went to
Vegas.
Vegas.
SoFi Stadium will be there in 10 years if
Right.
you want to go.
I went to Vegas last year with the Eagles. That was the worst game ever, right? And that's like this futuristic new Death Star thing. And that's cool, but it feels very sterile, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Being from Philadelphia, you kind of want to go see a real place. So
Okay, Arrowhead's
I'd
about
opt
as
for
real as it gets.
Kansas City. Okay, so, and I want to also take the opportunity to thank a sponsor that's been with us from the start. I introduced you early on to our friend Mark Goodhart. The Goodhart Law Firm has been on board from the start. Can't thank those guys enough. And, for any of your personal injury needs, this is where you want to look. These are real people. They're supporting what we do, and, it's based on real relationships we have with them. We know who they are, and they're great. And in the event that you have any need for legal counsel as a result of any injuries of any kind, do check out thegoodheartfirm.com. And always they'll be, they're going to be number one in our hearts for jumping on from the start. So we can't thank those guys enough. And
can't wait to get hurt.
Yeah.
Shout out Goodhart Firm.
Shout out to the Goodhart Firm. And so, Ray, now, look, you came on the podcast, and that's step one. Okay, you didn't know there's multiple steps to this, but step two is we got to get you down. We're going to have a playoff tailgate, okay?
Okay.
Now, I'm guessing maybe, I don't know. Yeah, we're going to playoff tailgate. You didn't hear about this?
No, I didn't hear about
Oof, yeah, well, you're
We've
going to need
just
to be there.
informed Rock, we're having a playoff tailgate.
Yeah,
You're
well,
not.
maybe you're not going to be there. We don't know. But here's what we will have. We will have our buddies at Kenwood Beer, a lot of beer. We're going to have Federal Donuts Chicken is going to be in the house, again, as we do, thanks to our homies over there. And we're going to do a podcast.
Fink's Hoagies.
Fink's Hoagies, always. How could I overlook them? Again, your tray of hoagies is waiting for you over here, and we're done.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right, so maybe we'll get. I realize by then you're going to have to be on because you're doing the job. So maybe we can get. My dad said City Tavern's getting renovated, so maybe it's done by then. We get Walter to send some food down, special delivery for the show. What do you think? You're in for that.
You
right.
put it together, and I'll be there.
Let me see what I can do. I'm going to talk to Dad about.
Hold on, let me put that in my notes.
Sending you a care package.
Ray Diddy said he's going to be at the tent.
No. That's not what he said. He said he'll take the City Tavern food. Very different things. Very different things. All right. Well, look, it was such a pleasure having you here, Ray. Amazing talking about not only the Eagles, getting the breakdown that we've all been missing from you was
It's just a little
so
appetizer
cool.
to get them warmed up for, the playoffs,
Yeah,
right?
we had
This
to
is-
warm you up, so that you're ready to go.
Right.
As if you saw him here, with us, just absolutely destroying it right off the bat.
I got a question real quick. I'm sorry. Since you retired, is there anything that you really miss about your career? Like I know you're coming back in a couple of weeks, but is there anything that you absolutely miss that
I miss I miss game day.
miss game?
I miss game day. I miss being down there, and I miss watching the games with Seth, with Michael Barkan, with Barrett, and they've added Ron Jaworski this year. Just that being there, watching the game with those guys, that give and take in the studio was really a lot of fun and very educational for me. I mean, sitting there watching the games with, over the years, Tom Brookshire, Brian Westbrook, Ike Reese, Trey Thomas, the various guys who came in to be the analyst. You sit and you watch a game with those guys, they see the game a whole different way.
Right.
And it's really, really very educational. I mean, so I've learned a lot of football sitting with those guys. And if I miss anything, that's probably it. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to watching at home.
Yeah.
You got your refrigerator, you got your bathroom. There's a lot of home comforts
You got
there.
the
but
bulldog.
Got the bulldog, all of that. But I do. Those days of sitting actually watching the game with with those guys was really a highlight. So I do miss that.
Were you ever a baller yourself? Were you ever a footballer or basketballer yourself?
Oh, long ago, back in school days. But
Okay.
nothing
Like
of
you,
any
buddy.
consequence.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, about like you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Well, Ray, thanks so much. It was
you,
really
Ray.
a pleasure.
Thank
we
you, Ray.
appreciate
It was a
you.
pleasure
My
picking
pleasure.
Thank you,
brain, Ray.
everybody
Thank
that
you very
tuned
much.
in. And we'll get you next week.
maybe next week.
Yeah, we can.